Tonight, President Biden finally addressing the nation after dropping out of the race on Sunday.
Here with what we could expect to hear tonight at 8 p.m. You'll see it here on Fox News. He is Fox News contributor and speechwriter to GWB, Mark Thiessen. Hey, Mark, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
If you were writing the speech, you would have him resign because he's unfit to be president.
Yeah, that's probably why he's not going to ask me to write the speech.
Probably.
Unfortunately. But look, if he did ask me to write the speech, it would be a very hard speech to write because he owes the American people a lot of explanations, and they're really no good answers to provide. I mean, just a few days ago, he was telling the American people it was full steam ahead. He was perfectly fine. He was fit. He just had a bad night, and now all of a sudden he's reversed course 180 degrees. What happened? What changed? Why? He has to explain why suddenly he has stepped aside, and he also has to explain, why if he's fit to serve, if he's not fit to run, why is he fit to serve? Right. Why is he still the president? These are questions that's going to be very hard to answer.
Yeah, all of a sudden, 100 days, a little more than 100 days out of this election, and then he tells us that he's resigning. This is unprecedented. It's never been happened before. You worked for a president. What's happening behind the scenes? How did this all play out?
Well, I've never worked for a president like this. I mean, with an Oval Office address for a president, unless there's like an immediate crisis or some kind, you're working on these speeches for weeks at a time to prepare for them. This is something that's being put together at the last second, a sudden decision that was made, though maybe behind the scenes they were preparing for this moment and just moving him towards it. So maybe the speechwriters were assigned to do this a couple of weeks ago, and just the president didn't know that his speechwriters were working on it. But the other thing, keep in mind, is also, the last thing we really want is for him to resign because from the White House, because Kamala Harris is the most radical person ever nominated by a major party. If you look at her voting record, remember 4 years ago, the Democrats panicked that Bernie Sanders might end up being the Democratic nominee, which is why they rallied around Joe Biden. Her voting record was to the left of Bernie Sanders in the U.S. Senate. She was, of 100 senators, she was the most far left person. She completely supports the Green New Deal, the whole Democratic Socialist agenda, from the Green New Deal to Medicare for all. This is a very radical person. She should never be anywhere near the Oval Office.
Of course, famously, Barack Obama chose Hillary Clinton to run in 2016, not Joe Biden, his vice president. Hillary's in the New York Times. She wrote an op-ed and she said, among other things, Mark, while it still pains me that I could not break that highest, hardest glass ceiling, I'm proud that my two presidential campaigns made it seem normal to have a woman at the top of the ticket. It sounds like she's forgotten about Geraldine Ferraro, who, of course, ran for vice president with Mondale.
Yeah, no, I think Hillary is maybe saying that publicly, but she's quietly seething that Kamala Harris is this close to the Oval Office. But I'll tell you, this is very dangerous. This is not a normal candidate. This is the most far left person ever nominated by a major party. She wants to ban fracking, which is going to be, how's that going to sell in Pennsylvania? She opposed. She wanted to abolish ICE. She supported health care for all illegal migrants. I mean, the list of her radical left policies goes with that. And she also owns all the disasters of the Biden administration. She cast the deciding vote for the spending that unleashed the worst inflation in 4 decades. So it's going to be a tough sell.
Thank you so much, Mark, for coming on.
Congressman Pat Fallon, Republican from Texas, joins me now. Congressman, Republicans it seems to me, are solidly behind Israel, unlike a divided Democrat Party. Is that an accurate statement? Republicans are united behind Israel?
Stuart, I think you nailed it perfectly. I mean, there is not one GOP member of Congress that I'm aware of that isn't a staunch supporter of the only democracy in the Middle East and our greatest ally in the region. Unfortunately, on the Democratic side of the ledger, you're absolutely right. They are divided. I mean, the Vice President of the United States is not going to attend when the Prime Minister of Israel gives a speech to the joint session of Congress?
It's her first foreign policy foray, isn't it? The first foreign policy move of her candidacy. That's it. And look what she's done.
Yeah, well, you know what? She could have shown statesmanship, or as the liberals would say, stateswomanship. Don't want to get them angry, Stuart. But, I mean, she didn't, and she punted on it, and it's ridiculous.
Next one. Democrat Congressman Pete Aguilar is dismissing claims that Kamala Harris is the border czar. He's dismissing that. Watch this.
Let's be very clear that there was no border czar. Kamala Harris's role was to engage in multilateral discussions with our Latin American countries. The numbers speak for themselves on where we are with border crossings. We are in a much better position than we have in the past. Efforts by House Republicans to carry the water of Donald Trump are just laughable and unserious.
I think the Democrats are somewhat embarrassed by Kamala Harris's performance on the border. I mean, I might ask, what has Harris done to address the migrant crisis?
She hasn't done anything, and I would agree with my colleague that what's laughable and unserious is Kamala Harris's efforts at the border, which were negligible. And in fact, the numbers do speak for themselves, Stuart. We had 5 million illegal border crossings from folks from Central America, and particularly the Northern Triangle, the three countries, Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, since she was named the border czar. And in fact, and it's not the numbers, the best numbers we've seen in a while. This is the worst numbers we've ever seen historically. Even under Obama and then President Trump, at this time in their presidencies, they had about just over 2 million illegal border crossings. This administration has seen 10 million. So by that measure, it's 5 times worse. So the numbers do speak for themselves. And Kamala Harris, it doesn't have any leadership ability whatsoever to lead this country. I wouldn't even hire her to be a dog catcher. I wouldn't hire her to run a Burger King.
Well, that's a pretty thorough rundown of Kamala Harris. I mean, they're trying to conceal her record, I think they're embarrassed by her record. Can you think of anything that she's done really well?
She cackles well.
Oh.
And Stuart, in all seriousness, that's what I was just thinking about when I was about to come on. I want the Democrats to name one accomplishment that she has achieved as either a United States senator or a vice president. What was under her portfolio that she can champion? And it's nothing. And now they're trying to shame any criticism of her at all. You're either a misogynist or racist. And I'm not playing that game. We care about who a person is, not what they are.
Congressman Pat Fallon from Texas. Thanks so much for joining us, sir. Always appreciate it.
Thanks, Stuart. God bless.
Also want to get to this. You have introduced a resolution condemning the border czar, Kamala Harris, over her role in the crisis. You say that the record, this is the record we have here. She was okay with taxpayer-funded health care for illegal immigrants, decriminalizing border crossing, so no penalties for lawbreakers, and support of sanctuary cities limiting cooperation with federal authorities. The spokesman for the White House, Andrew Bates, he says as we speak, congressional Republicans continue their months-long blockade of critical resources for ICE and the Border Patrol in the tough bipartisan border security agreement supported by the Biden-Harris administration. Is she on her back foot when it comes to this issue, getting into this race?
She's on her back foot. She's going to even be more on her back foot. And I think we're at a high water mark for Kamala Harris's polling. It's going to go lower. She was designated by Joe Biden as the border czar. And what has happened, the most catastrophic open border in our nation's history. The #1 issue, no matter what congressional district, no matter what state you poll, is this border crisis. And Kamala Harris owns it lock, stock, and barrel. She oversaw the gravest national security threat, economic threat, the fact that 500 individuals on the terrorist watch list crossed the border illegally during Kamala Harris's role as border czar. She owns this border crisis, and it's going to be a driving factor going into this election cycle. And again, Dana, as Democrats in backroom deals didn't allow voters across this country to select their nominee, Kamala Harris has been designated by Democrat donors and Democrat elites. But the American people are smart. They know that she owns the failures of the Biden-Harris administration, whether it's the border crisis, whether it's the historic inflation crisis, and voters are going to hold her accountable. Compare that to the success, the most secure border in modern history under President Trump, and the booming economy. So I think this will be a stark contrast and choice this election cycle this November, and President Trump is going to win on these issues.
So much more to talk about with you. Please keep us posted on how that speech goes today. Netanyahu addressing the Congress at 2 p.m. Thank you.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.
Staunch, staunch, punt, punt, statesmanship, statesmanship, negligible, negligible, condemn, condemn, decriminalize, decriminalize, unprecedented, unprecedented, sieve, sieve.
If you enjoy this content, please consider subscribing to my channel to stay up to date with future videos. Thank you for watching.